Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, and I hope you're having a fantastic day today. As always, if you could do me a massive favor, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with a friend, and of course, comment below. I shall endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. Right, now, today I've got sort of two different things for you. One is a little bit of a story about something that happened to me with regards to wax and oil lubricant for your chain that I thought was relevant and interesting, so I want to share it with you today. And the other thing was answering some of your questions from a previous video I did, which was all about how to lubricate your chain with oil. You can check that video out in the description below. I have it linked if you haven't seen it already. And a few points were raised in that I just wanted to address today. And I've got a little bit of a demonstration to show you later about that as well. Right, folks, let's get on with the video. So first off, the story. So as you may know, about 6 months ago, I received in the mail my first block of paraffin wax for my paraffin wax hot chain waxing experiments that I conducted. And I conducted those experiments, I would say, if I'm being conservative, I would say I conducted those experiments for 4 months. And I waxed the chains of both my road bikes. And I rode on those chains on both those bikes for that 4-month period. And during that 4-month period, I tried two different waxes. I tried basic pure paraffin wax I bought offline. And I tried paraffin candle wax that I bought in a local store. And I waxed 5 different kinds of chains. So, you know, your standard Shimano chains, coated chains, painted chains, different brands of chain. And then I did my video all about my experience of waxing chains, gave my conclusions, and I thought that was pretty much the end of it. And literally only last week, when I made my video on how to oil a chain, did I return back to oil. So for the entire 4-month period, I've just been on wax, riding everywhere on wax. And I lubed my chain in that video that I demonstrated how to do it. And then the very next morning, I woke up a little bit sleepy and I got onto my bike and I started riding. And the ride that I did was this one, which is a regular ride of mine. So this is my short ride. So whenever I can't be bothered to think up any kind of imaginative ride, or when I haven't got anything particularly planned, this is the ride that I do. It's just a 35-kilometer loop. And yeah, you know, it's my usual morning route. And that route is sort of quite interesting. It's got lots of different road surfaces. There's some good, some bad. It's a lot of undulating terrain. There's a few little rises in the terrain. And there's one really big hill that at about 7 or 8%. And it's quite long. It's a decent challenge, let's say. And I was riding down the road, and bearing in mind 4 months on wax, and I was riding down the road, and I thought, chain sounds quiet today. Feels pretty smooth as well. I looked down and went, oh, yeah, of course, I've switched back to oil. Carried on riding. And then about halfway through the ride, I looked down at my computer before I got to that big hill. And normally, for the last 4 months at least, when I look down at my average speed, the best I can hope for is about 33 kilometers an hour. That's about as good as I've averaged in the last at least 4 or 5 months, okay? And I looked down and I was doing 38 kilometers an hour average speed. I was in fact doing more than 38 kilometers an hour average speed. And I thought, hello, this is a bit strange. What? Why am I going so fast today? And I looked around, I looked at the weather conditions, and I went, pretty consistent with what I usually experience on this ride. And I looked at my location, and I thought, there is nothing here to explain why I'm going this fast. But I was happy about it, and I pushed on. Got to the hill, did the hill, finished off the ride afterwards, got home, and bearing in mind, again, for the last few months, the best average speeds I could hope for was around about 30 kilometers an hour. Often it would be less than 30 kilometers an hour. Often it would be 29 or 28 point something. And on that day, first day back on an oiled chain, I achieved 33.1. Here's the thing. On that ride, I had 2 incidents with motor vehicles blocking my path. that normally doesn't happen on my morning ride. So actually, I was slowed down during that ride 2 more times than usual. Okay, it's one ride. It's not a scientific study or anything, but I find that highly unusual. I find it highly unusual that just the only thing that I changed is I'd gone from wax chains back to oil. Now, the wax I was using had no additives in it, had no PTFEs, had no friction modifiers. It was just straightforward paraffin wax. So I cannot say as to whether a fancy $60 wax that you buy offline is not going to make you faster. I can't say that. It may indeed be significantly faster than anything that I own, okay, with regards to lubrication. I'll take that as being gospel. But from my personal experience, what I can see here is oil, for me, at least the oil that I use, is significantly faster than standard paraffin wax. And another thing I noticed was that with my wax times, they were very consistent. Like 1 hour, 13 minutes, 1 hour, 13 minutes, 1 hour, 13 minutes, 1 hour, 7, 1 hour, 7. I was like, why is that? Why are we getting consistent 1 hour 13s and consistent 1 hour 7 minutes on the same ride with wax chains? I thought about it and I went, aha. What I'd been told is that a freshly waxed chain is 5 watts slower than a broken in chain. So I put down the 1 hour 7 minute times to the broken in chains, and I put the 1 hour 13s to every time I had a freshly waxed chain on the bike. That to me makes sense, right? That would explain why we're getting consistent 2 separate times, 1 hour 7s and 1 hour 13s for my wax chain rides. But still, the oil-based chain ride was like 1 hour 5. So it was significantly faster than both a broken-in wax chain and a non-broken-in wax chain. Now, why do I think this is? Okay, so the way wax chains was marketed to me was that a freshly waxed chain is 5 watts slower than an oil chain.
Non-broken in wax chain, when it's still very stiff, was around 5 watts slower than a factory fresh greased chain that you would just get out the packet. Now, if you'd properly broken in your wax chain, we'd expect, having spoken to Silka, for that to be about 1 watt faster than the factory fresh greased chain.
But after half an hour's worth of riding, the wax chain is broken in, so it's lost a lot of that disadvantage that it had. And a oil chain, after a similar period of riding, will start to deteriorate so rapidly, because what happens is, according to people who are pro-wax, what happens is that when you ride on an oil chain, the moment you step out your front door, the oil is like a magnet, and everything within a 10-kilometer radius that's like grit will just go and stick to your bike, right?
Yeah! Magnets! Oh!
And because that is what happens to an oil chain, it becomes so inefficient that you lose so many watts that the wax chain overtakes it. Now, I thought or believed when I started my waxing experiment that a wax chain was inherently faster than an oil-based chain. Is like, this is your wax chain and this is your oil chain, right? It's not that the wax chain is faster, and it's not that it gets significantly faster over time. It maintains that same efficiency, and the oil chain drops below it. Okay. But that relies on the oil chain getting that bad, that quickly. Now, this is my group set after that first ride, after I did that 35k, which is a short ride, granted. And here's to answer one of the first questions that people raised in my lubrication video. They said, well, you know, okay, all very well and all that, but if you use oil, your bike is just going to pick up all the muck and your chain's going to get really mucky. Well, if you look at this, that doesn't look too bad to me, okay? Now, there's nothing stopping you from, after your ride, getting home and giving that a quick wipe with the dirty cloth, with your dirty rag, right, that I told you about in the previous video. Check it out if you haven't seen it. There's nothing stopping you just giving that a quite quick wipe down and removing some of the dirt that has stuck to that chain during that short ride. And then for your next short ride, well, you're almost riding with a clean chain again. Yes, it won't be perfectly clean, but it'll certainly be a lot cleaner than if you just left the dirt on there, right? Now, This is my chain at the end of the week's worth of riding. I didn't do that much riding this week, but this has done 100 kilometers or more. And again, doesn't look that dirty. It looks pretty clean, to be honest with you. Again, I usually wash my chain within 150 to 150 to 300 kilometers, right? So this, for me, is still good for another couple of 100K. I'm happy for this to get dirtier, basically. And then when it reaches that 300 kilometers or 150 kilometers, I always wash the bike anyway, because I wash the bike once a week. So for me, it's not a big deal. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think this chain, after say 60 kilometers or even 100 kilometers, is so dirty from just normal road dust and dirt that it is running that inefficiently, that it's running so inefficiently that the wax chain beats it. Now, there is a certain person out there who really pushes waxing. He has his own testing rig that he does. And what he does is he puts oil-based and wax-based lube chains on his testing rig and rotates the crank and monitors the friction or whatever from the system and determines which one is the best lube. But during his testing, he throws handfuls of sand at this thing. And as far as I'm aware, sprinkles sand onto the chain.
Now I just release the contamination onto the chain. So we can hear there's a change in sound as that contamination. So this just releases the contamination at a controlled rate. And that's it, that's the 5 grams of contamination added. So now if we listen.
Because at no point on my road rides do I get handfuls of sand or sprinkles of sand sprinkled onto my chain. That never happens. If that were to happen, and like say for example I was gravel riding, then I would be tempted to jump to a solid lube or a dry lube. Okay, that makes logical sense to me. But for road riding, my chain doesn't come into contact with that much dust and dirt. I'm on the road. Although the roads are not clean, they're certainly not so dirty that they're, you know, a good analog for that would be sprinkling dirt directly onto the chain. That just doesn't happen. So again, I'm looking at the results that are portrayed by these people and what they're telling us, and they're saying, oh well, you know, wax chains are better because they don't pick up the dirt, and your oil-based chain is going to become really inefficient because of all that dirt. But then I'm looking at my own life experience and I'm saying, well, number one, my chain's not getting that dirty. Simply, it's just not coming into contact with that amount of dirt on the road when I'm riding. If it does come into an extreme contact with an extreme amount of dirt, then it's probably an extreme situation like really bad weather, in which case I'm going to just degrease the drivetrain and relube it the next day anyway. Or I'm going to switch bikes and go to another bike that I have that's clean, or I'm going to flush the chain out with my lubricant, which is not something I generally do or recommend, but if you're forced to do it because of extreme situations, give everything a good wipe down, flush the rollers out with clean lube, and then wipe everything down again, and that will basically rejuvenate your chain to some extent. All of that is in the how to lube your chain video that is linked below. So if you want to go check that out, please do so. So yeah, this was interesting for me. I really didn't expect this. Now, at no point am I going to suggest that this won't work for you. And again, I go back to the idea of if I was gravel riding every day, I would seriously consider waxing my chain. In fact, my shopping bike, which I use for shopping, gravel riding, and dropping my kids at play school, that bike, I am actually considering waxing the chain. And one of the main reasons I'm considering waxing the chain on that bike is because it does gravel and because I have little kids that are around that bike, and so they may be tempted to grab hold of the chain. As of yet, my daughter has been very, very good, and although she's only 3 years old, I've told her not to touch the chain, and so she just doesn't. I guess I have a uniquely well-behaved child. But other than that, my road bikes are going to stay on oil. I just cannot see any significant advantage. And now, it appears to me that there isn't even any speed advantage. In fact, that I'm losing significant speed. Another thing that people said in my lubrication video about oil was, oh, you know, oil's all very well, but what you'll find is you'll get splatters of oil all over your bike frame. Now, again, as you can see, I've done several rides on this bike, and there's no oil spatters anywhere on my bike. And I hit lots of bumps in the road. I hit lots of potholes. I often jump curbs and things with my bike just for fun. And as you can see, there's no oil spatters anywhere. That is because I wiped the chain down really well, okay, as I demonstrated in the previous video. So again, if you're getting oil spatters all over your bike, either your oil is the wrong viscosity, and as I showed in that video on how to make oil, also linked below, you can modify the viscosity of the oil if you wish on my system, make it thicker or lighter depending on your needs, or you are simply not maintaining your bike properly. You should be wiping off the chain properly after lubrication. And if after the first ride you see that there's like a lot of oil buildup still on the chain, you know, that's seeped out of the rollers, give it another wipe. Job done. Okay, and then that's about it, apart from a lot of people said that Silka, I think in one of their videos, demonstrate that in order to properly lubricate, you need to cross-chain your drivetrain. I'm now going to demonstrate that that is not necessary. All right, let's have a look. This one has been stripped of all its lubricant. I put this in a bath of kerosene, then soapy water, and then methylated spirits. So this is completely dry of any kind of lubricant, and it's completely clean as well. This is another offcut from a brand new chain. What we're going to do is we're going to see about this claim that in order to get good penetration of the rollers and the bearing surfaces with your oil, if you want to know how to make this oil, you can watch my other video, link below. If you want to get good penetration of these bearing surfaces, you have to bend or twist the chain. So what we're going to do to test this is put this chain down here, add some lubricant to these 3 rollers here, and then we're going to split it open and have a look inside what's going on. So again, lube that I showed in a previous video. I'm going to put a drop on each one. Drop on there. Drop on there. I'm just dripping it on the rollers as well. Drop on there. There we go. Sorted. Right. So there's oil already coming through, as you can see. And then it would go through the rear derailleur and bend a little bit. And now we're going to wipe it off. It's not going to be easy to wipe this tiny piece of chain off effectively, but I'll do my best to try and get rid of any of the oil that's on the outside of the chain. Right, there you go. Right, let's break it open and see what it looks like inside, see how good the penetration was. Start with this link. I'm going to drive the pin all the way out. There's that one. There we go. Right. Straight away, let's have a look at those plates there. You will notice that they are in fact oily. Look, if I do that in the light, you can see the little sheen of oil that is around both sides of that inner plate. And if we look at these outer plates, oops, you can see that one side is completely dry. That's the side that I didn't lubricate, and the other side has oil on it. In fact, there's so much oil it's running out of that bearing area, and it's covering almost half of this inner plate surface here. Look. Okay, so that, at least those 2 sides are well lubricated. Let's push out this pin here and then we can get a look at the rollers as well. But so far so good. One more pin to go. This is going to completely collapse on us. Whoops. There it goes. Right, this one is one of the inner plates. There's oil all over that. You can see the oil here, here. It's wet. The whole thing is wet. Even the inside here is wet with oil. If I put it against my glove, press down, you can see the oil there. Look, let's try that again. Get a nice imprint from this. trying to do this on camera. There we go. There you can see there's oil there. That plate is definitely oily. Let's check this roller. Yep, same again, oily, as you can see, and that's super oily. That roller is completely oiled. If I flip it over, both sides completely coated in oil, and the inside is oily. Let's look at one of these bearing plates. There we go. This one again completely covered in oil. Outside looks oily as well. So this is the inner plate. There's oil on all the surfaces, including in the middle. Again, hard for you to see this on camera, I think. There we go. Look at that. Everything there has got oil on it. Now here's the thing. You can't get more oil on it than that, because if you were to, let's say you bathed this in a bucket of oil and pulled it out and then broke it, yes, there would be a lot more oil inside there, but all that oil is just going to drip out. It won't stay in there. The amount of oil that you can actually get to stay inside the chain is it's a tiny amount. It's a very small amount. So once you've got like 100% penetration of the chain, that's it. You can't load more oil in there. So let's look at this final set of plates here. Take that one out. Yeah, same again. Very oily all the way around, including on the inside of this thing. There's absolutely no issue there with oil getting in. And then let's check these plates as well. Yeah. Oily again. Both sides are completely oiled. There's oil everywhere inside there, all the way along the thing. There you go, folks. As far as I can tell, it is simply not necessary to do any fancy twisting of the chain. Just a blob of oil on each roller, let it sit for a minute at most, and then give it a good wipe down. And that oil is already doing its job. It's already spreading around. And the two reasons why I think particularly a company like Silka would want you to do this is because they push, drip-on wax products and things like that, I imagine, that are thicker. So those are less penetrative than just a standard oil. And I also know that they offer a lot of options for drip-on lubes which contain lots and lots of particles. So for example, that you have to shake them up because there's particulates in there which are supposedly friction modifiers or whatever, like a PTFE, for example, but not. I don't think they use PTFE, but they might use something else. Anyway, by opening up the chain, you allow those particles in more easily. But with a standard oil like this, there's no particles in here to get trapped in those small gaps. So I guess if you did have some kind of particle in here that you have to shake up before you add your lube, potentially twisting the chain like that will help to get those particles in there. But like I say, for a standard oil, it's just not necessary. That standard oil will find its way in. Okay, folks, thank you very much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it, as always. And before I go, I just want to make it absolutely clear that I couldn't care less what kind of lubricant you decide to put on your chain. You will do whatever works for you. Okay, hopefully that was clear. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. As always, when you're out riding, do stay safe. Yeah, bye-bye for now. Bye.